Well, welcome back to the shop build. So this video is going to be all about more framing. So previous video we did the framing of the lower first floor of our guest house, and this video we're going to be going over all the steps and the processes for the vaulted ceiling of our guest house, and as well as all the framing down here, and as well as not just framing it, but also how to stand up the framing, different methods, things like that. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the process of this framing for the shop and guest house. Well, we're back here at the rafter framing stage. We're just about ready to start laying out for our rafters so we can cut those. For the process, this is going to be like a little bit of process of how to lay out for a rafter. Some of the things that you need to know that the plans are going to tell us: we need the total span, which is from the outside of framing to outside of framing. That's 28 feet. Half of that to the beam, the center of that beam, is 14 feet. That's our total run. So with our total run, and we have a given slope or our pitch. Our pitch is a 5/12 pitch. What that means is for every 12 inches of run, it's going to rise 5 inches. So with that knowledge of the 14-foot run and a 5-inch pitch, we can get our theoretical rafter length from end to end on that diagonal. So let's show you that so we can get that laid out.
Before we started on the rafters, we did have to finish up some of the sheathing. So Jack and I, since we can reach it, we decided that we needed to put that on first. You'll see some of the plywood actually sticks up. That's so it can tie the rafters and the blocking into the wall itself. It helps with just a stronger connection. So also reaching as many as we can with our nails for our 6 and 12 pattern, 6 in the field and 6 on the edges and 12 in the field. That way we don't have to be up on a ladder or other as much as possible. So now what we're doing, we're installed the rafter, the very first rafter, all cut with those dimensions that we figured and calculations that we came up with. And after this rafter, what our next job is to start doing the lookouts, or also called outriggers, that create that overhang for this project. We're gonna end up having a 2-foot overhang all around. So in this case here, we got a 2-foot overhang. So notice that I am tied off, so make sure that you're tied off when you're running a boom lift. And that sort of thing. So be safe while you're doing the work, as well as at some point when we go to do our sheathing here, which is later in a different video, we're gonna put up some fall protection as well, so that we can be tied off to a lifeline. Once we had the outriggers all done and trimmed to length on the one side, we finished installing the rafters. We tried to do everything that we could, being able to reach everything with the boom lift. If we did both sides at the same time, it could have been just a little bit more challenging. Here's a better look at the outriggers. We did a 2-foot on center just because it's a 2-foot overhang. If it was shorter, we would do a different on center spacing, such as like if it was 12 inches of an overhang, our spacing would be spread out a little bit more. So I just wanted a little bit stronger overhang, so when we're standing out there for one reason, and even just during framing, that it's stronger. So also in between those, we're putting a 2x6 blocking it's actually for the outside, for the siding to stop up against. So it overhangs the framing 1.5 inches. So on the inside, it's pushed over 1.5 inches, and that sort of thing. So doing that at the same time. Also, you don't see it in this video, but I am gonna put a 2x4 ledger underneath for sheetrock. So I can reach everything here with the boom lift. If I had everything in place, I wouldn't be able to reach it.
Well, you can see that we got the rafters on the one side. Now we want to get going on these rafters on the other side, but I need to install this wall right here so that the double top plate carries over, splicing the two together. Once that is, then we can lay out on top of the double top plate and continue this way with those rafters. After we get all our rafters all done, this wall standed, rafters done, and the blocking. There's a ledger on that far side for sheetrock we're gonna put on. And then we're gonna start on this interior rake wall. And from there, once that gets all up, then we got the rest of our walls to stand, get ready for trusses. So it's kind of exciting. So
for standing up this wall, as you're gonna see here, this boom lift is not designed as a crane, but I figured it's my boom lift and it's a 500-pound capacity, which this is less. It's only picking up half this wall. To me, this was the safest option. And by the way, if you can notice, I do have a 2x4 ledger on there just so it doesn't pull the top plate off. This to me was safer than the risk of it falling on somebody. And plus it's such a tall wall, 13 foot 6 inches. So, and I'm not in the lift either. So be careful if you're ever to do something like this. I figured this was the safest option. I do have wall jacks, but as far as studs go, nothing that long for this process. So the next thing that I'm gonna be doing is after I have my double top plate on, connecting the walls like here, now the next thing is adding more rafters. In between the rafters where they splice together is gonna be a 2x10 blocking. You can kind of see it here in a minute. All right, here you go. You can see the blocking here. These are a 2x10. This allows for the ventilation above. There's a little air gap above it, which you gotta have in vaulted ceilings. In Oregon, it's an R30 insulation minimum, which with a 2x12, this allows about 2 inches of airspace above for ventilation. What you don't see here is we did make a measurement between the second floor and that exterior wall to make sure we had the dimension that we had, and also overall that we needed 28 feet from exterior to exterior. So when we built this rake wall, we wanted to make sure we accommodated for that adjustment. Now that this wall is up in place, we'll get it all nailed off on each side, add the double top plate, and add the blocking. In this case, we're gonna put the blocking at the floor. There's not really a specific location. We're not adding 10-foot sheets of exterior sheathing, so it's just gonna get sheetrock on both sides. That is a requirement though, however, that it gets sheetrock on both sides for fire rating.
Well, yesterday we got all our rafters in, we got this rake wall in, we got that wall in. We're making some really good progress. So our next wall that we're gonna tackle is this one right here. It's another 16-foot long wall. It's gonna have a 6-foot wide window in it, as well as part of a door. This last part of it, we're gonna end up stick framing probably in place, or maybe we'll even frame it on the ground. We'll have to lift it up because we got to get it up over those pipes and that grounding rod. So, but the door itself, we're gonna have to complete in place when it's standing. So majority of it will get framed down low, and then we'll stand it and finish up the framing for the door when it's standing in place. So things are moving along, looking good. So let's keep going at it. We've got a few more walls to build.
When framing a wall like this is a 16-foot wide wall and 13.5-foot tall, with a bottom plate and a sole plate that's bolted down to the concrete and a single top plate. The double top plate's gonna be added after. This opening that I'm framing right now is for a 6.030 opening. That is 6 foot wide, 3 foot tall. This opening also, since it's so wide, the engineer requires it to have two 2x10s for a built-up header, like it is shown there, and the hard side facing out for the plywood sheeting, and it's gonna get rigid insulation on the inside. The assembly of it is just how I did it here. It gets 2 king studs on the sides and 2 trimmers. So make sure before you install that second king stud that you fasten the header and the trimmers to it, and then add your second king stud to it. So make sure you're nailing good and solid for your header before you're adding that second king stud. Adding the sill plate, your windowsill down at the bottom, nailing it just how I'm nailing it here. There are other ways to have a broken trimmer. So I could have elected to have a continuous trimmer and then also a broken trimmer, but this just seems to be easier for the install. When you get done assembling the wall, you want to make sure the bottom is nice and straight, and then also you want to make sure it's square. So you're checking a measurement from diagonal to diagonal, making sure they're equal. That way it's going to be ready for sheeting. And here in a minute, we're going to be sheeting it, and then before we stand it. So that's one method that I prefer to do, is sheeting it before we stand it. After we got those walls up, we had to frame in place the last little portion of this section. So we elected, since we had to raise it up over the conduit and the grounding rod, we didn't want to put the sheeting on, it'd be too heavy. So here we're putting it on after. Some people decide to put that on after anyhow, to make sure everything's nice and plumb. But if you have a nice level slab or foundation, then you shouldn't have any problems with doing your sheeting beforehand. This other side to the right, we didn't sheet that one either, kind of because we decided to lift that up by hand, just the two of us. Give good props to my father-in-law, Jack. He's a pretty strong man, and guess what? He's 72 years old as well. So good on him for being in shape and helping out. I sure appreciate it. Here over on this side, so since this little section is a little bit taller, we had to cut 1.5 inches off of it. The stem wall is 1.5 inches taller, that is. So we want to also make sure it's nice and plumb before we sheet it. So once you sheet it, those two sections, if it's out of plumb, well, it's pretty much staying there. So we made sure to make sure it was nice and plumb right there on the corner. And yeah, we'll get this side up, and then later on we'll come add that last 4 foot, give or take, sheet going horizontal. So we got sheets that are going vertical and sheets that are going horizontal. In our area, the engineer called for continuous blocking all around. So we had to make sure we had that blocking all around.
All right, well, we're getting quite a bit done. We got this corner all done here, except for the plywood on the upper part. That's gonna be probably for another day, but we're gonna start framing up this corner so we can get this header on for the garage door. It's 12 foot by 12 foot. So that would be 120 by 120 header. So we got this wall all framed up, standing. So an important thing to do is to make sure that everything's gonna be braced off straight for trusses. So we're gonna have trusses in a couple weeks actually. So we still got some other framing that we got to do, this corner, and we also have this breezeway here to frame up this covered walkway here. So it doesn't have to be done for the trusses, but of course this corner here does, so that's what we're working on next.
Gotta love my helper here, and anytime you have children like I do, George, he's 11 years old, He, right now I got him measuring for blocking. So this young man, he can read a tape measure, square a line, mark it. Of course, he's got his hearing protection on too, because you know things are loud. So make sure you're taking care of them and that they're being safe as well. So here, this last bit, laying out for my studs, bottom plate, top plate, and then we'll get it up in place. George and I did recruit my daughter Macy, so she helped us lift it up in place and get it all nailed off. So here we're just finishing up. We got our double top plate to put on, and then we'll be moving around the corner.
All right, we're gonna finish this up with the garage or the shop entry door. So it's a 12-0, which is, it's actually 120-0 and 120-0. So it's 12 foot 0 inches by 12 foot 0 inches, the garage door. So some other things about the opening that we got to take into account is on the sides. Each side is going to have a 2x8 trim board, top, bottom, sides. So that's going to be in addition to it. So 12 foot plus 3 inches on the sides, 12 foot plus 1.5 inches on the top. That would be our rough opening. So at the top, it also gets a 4x12 header. And in this case, it's better to have the header go all the way to the double top plate, as you'll see. Instead of having a little tiny cripple at the top, we'll fur down the bottom so that to the opening, the size of the opening that we want. So that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're working on right now. Chris is over there cutting studs and to the length that we need. In this particular case, these two entryway concrete, if you refer back to a video a long time ago, I raised them up 1.5 inches to give us a little bit more space, a little bit more concrete exposure underneath. So when everything gets sided, that there's a little bit of space there for dry out and whatnot, like that it needs. So it's enough talking. Let's get back to work. All right, so we went up on the top. We measured from very far in to this very far in. We needed 28 feet, and magically it was perfect, 28 feet. So that's good. Now we're on to the garage door. So they're not connected with a single top plate yet. We got the header here. It's a 4x12 header. That's what the engineer called for. We're gonna have a 2x6 cap in the top because it's gonna be an insulated header. It's gonna look like this one here, but a bigger version of it. And then also, I'm gonna have two 2x6s on the bottom, and the two 2x6s on the bottom, that way it shims it down rather than having 1.5 inch cripple, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So the beam takes the length of the load. So my top plate for it, I can actually cut it, and it doesn't need to be full length. The board underneath it, the two 2x6s underneath, doesn't really need to be full length either, because all the weight's taken up in the header. So I mean, the very first one on the very, very bottom, there'll be 2 on the bottom. That'll be full length. The others, they're gonna be not full length. So trying to use up some of the material that we have. Same with that top one. So I'll probably end up cutting it back a little bit, and then putting like a 2-footer on there. So trying to stay away from that joint up there though. Stay away from it at least 4 feet one direction or the other. So the 2-foot section will be over on this side. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this video, this portion of the framing of the shop and the guest house. We went over the framing of the vaulted ceiling for the rafters and installing that, some of the blocking, that sort of thing, as well as our common walls for the rest of our shop. So
Make sure when you're doing things like this that you're being as safe as you can. Some things that I'm doing, some people are gonna have problems with, but that's okay. I'm here by myself trying to think of the safest ways of doing a big tall 13-foot wall, 13-foot 6-inch wall by myself or with one other helper, and trying to do things to keep somebody from getting squashed if it did fall. So I believe the way we did it, it was the safest for us and that sort of thing. So make sure you're being smart about your lifting, knowing how much things weigh. So when I did use the boom lift to lift, I needed to make sure that each wall was less than 500 pounds. And that's the capacity of this boom lift. So and it was. So yeah, that's it. And hopefully you enjoyed and all that good stuff. Make sure you put any comments down below, and I'll try to get to them when I can. But other than that, I'll see you next time on the shop build.